Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to another episode in this series of Citrix Ready podcast, where we talk about the key technology integrations that Citrix has with its partners. And what do I mean by that? Well, essentially, on this podcast, I invite guests from Citrix and their partners to spend a little time with me and teach both myself and our listeners in 165 countries a little more about how they're solving real-world problems for businesses, but not on their own, but by working together. Now, as many of you listening will know, I'm passionate about the role of technology in business and how it is increasingly being seen as an enabler across multiple industries. But I want to highlight real-life stories and help other business leaders listening understand that they can transform their business and leverage opportunities that it offers too, and ultimately build that new future of work. And I'm also quite excited to bust a few myths and misconceptions along the way and get past the jargon and unlock the valuable stuff by talking about this complex technology in a language that everybody will understand. So with Citrix's mission to power a better way for work, we're also going to discuss how technology can empower people and organisations to unlock innovation, engage customers and be more productive anytime, anywhere. And today, I'm really looking forward to speaking with Roberto from Citrix and Konstantin from NVIDIA about the kind of problems that they're solving by working together as partners. So let's get them on the show to find out more. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Hey, Neil. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Konstantin Svetnov, and I'm a solution architect at NVIDIA. I'm part of the professional visualization team, and I lead our technical pre-sales efforts in the Southeast for our virtual GPU solutions.
And hello, everyone. My name is Roberto Moreno, and I have been with Citrix for about 11 years now. I am currently a principal product manager in the Citrix Workspace Services team, looking after HDX technology specifically. Prior to joining the product management team, I was an enterprise architect for the consulting services team. So I spent many years working with customers out in the field and, have a lot of hands-on experience with designing and deploying IT solutions.
Excellent. Now, one of the reasons I record this daily tech podcast is to help businesses and leaders learn from other tech leaders out there, but also to bust a few myths and a few preconceptions about exactly what a company does. For example, most people listening will automatically associate Citrix with servers, application and desktop virtualization, and network software as a service and cloud computing technologies and all those kind of things. But I want to explore more about what it means for businesses. So sorry to ask such a big question and so early on in the podcast, but just so to ensure everyone listening is on the same page, can you tell me a little bit more about who is Citrix? What is the Citrix Ready program? And how are you building the new future of work?
Oh, so this is a big question for sure. But I am glad you asked. And I'll start with who is Citrix and how we're building the future of work. And then I'll talk a little bit about our Citrix Ready program. And you're right that people associate Citrix with different things. In fact, some people think Citrix only does apps and desktop virtualization, but we're so much more. And the Citrix of today is about the complete digital workspace. And this means giving an employee everything they need to be productive in one unified experience. And by everything, we mean applications that includes web, SaaS, mobile, Windows, Linux, and more. Plus desktops, of course, but also data and content collaboration. And most recently, micro apps and workspace intelligence that not only organizes everything the user needs, but it actually helps guide a user through their work tasks in a secure way. So as we look at today and into the future, we see the world is changing and the battle for highly skilled talent is in full effect. To stay competitive, companies need to ensure maximum user productivity today. And in parallel, we're seeing employees can context switch between all sorts of different applications in one day just to get their job done. So in many cases, IT is overloading the complexity of a simple task. So work will become personal as well. We estimate that by 2020, about 50% of the workforce will be remote. And this new generation of workers expect more meaning and autonomy from work. They crave technology that is powerful, intuitive, and anticipates their needs. So here at Citrix, we look at the future of work as one in where the workspace intelligence guides users efficiently through their business tasks, enabling users to focus on high-value work. A little bit on the Citrix Ready program, which is a technology partner program that helps software and hardware vendors of all types develop and integrate their products with Citrix technologies for the digital workspace. That also includes networking and analytics. And the Citrix Ready designation validates the different solutions through testing and verification that ensures compatibility with the Citrix stack.
So equally, when thinking of NVIDIA, most people listening will think of graphics processing units for gaming, Bitcoin mining, and professional markets, but there's so much more to it than that. So can you tell the listener a little bit more about who NVIDIA is?
Yeah, absolutely, Neil, and you're exactly right. People do think that, right?
Yeah.
And for a good reason. And for a good reason, because we are incredibly dedicated to our video gaming, to our gaming community, right? We've served that market for, many, many years now and decades, and, continuing to do so. And our consumer business is actually one of our most important segments and part of our strategy. But as you alluded to, NVIDIA over the years, through really many, many efforts and a lot of time and resources invested into innovation, we've become a true leader in many other areas, such as, high performance computing, artificial intelligence, data science, of course, in addition to, the professional graphics in the enterprise that we're going to talk at length about today. So, some of the world's most demanding applications now take advantage of NVIDIA, right? Whether it's graphics, whether we're talking compute, we have, many, many applications that are GPU accelerated that our customers take advantage of today.
And can you also tell the listener a little bit more about GPU and what is vGPU for anybody that's not heard of that?
Sure. NVIDIA was, the company itself was founded really over 25 years ago, back in 1993. And we've invented many things over the years. And one of those inventions is, of course, the GPU, which really transformed computer graphics as we knew it. And for those of you who are maybe a little new to IT, GPU stands for Graphics Processing Unit. And you can think of it as a super powerful engine whose goal is to accelerate the world's most resource demanding applications. So, we talked about, video gaming, right? If you think about gaming, if you think about, rendering scenes and characters in real time, that takes tremendous amount of computational resources to achieve. Equally, if you're, designing a model, right, doing some kind of a 3D architectural modeling, or if you're doing, computational fluid dynamic simulations, right, those workloads all seem very different from each other, but the common theme between them is the fact that they're very, very computationally intensive. And that is what the GPU is there to solve. And, we have, in fact, a catalog on the high-performance computing side with over 500 different applications that are GPU or CUDA accelerated. And CUDA is, for those of you, again, who don't know, CUDA is our software programming model that we invented over a decade ago that really allowed us to enter that space and really accelerate that high-performance computing and reduce the time to market for our customers. And finally, vGPU, right, which is really what we're here to talk about today. vGPU is our GPU virtualization solution stack. So, we took the concept of graphics acceleration that, we invented such a long time ago and from the workstation, and we actually made it possible with, of course, Citrix to, virtualize that and to essentially enable multiple users and multiple workloads to take advantage of a single piece of hardware or a single GPU board at the same time. And that is done by the use of software, with the use of hypervisors such as Citrix Event Server, with the use of a very superior and powerful remoting protocol such as the Citrix HDX technology, right? And of course, all of that comes together with the NVIDIA Grid or NVIDIA Virtual GPU solution stack. And so that kind of, really gives the customer the chance and the opportunity to decide and make a decision for themselves, how they want to design their environment and their data center, right? They may have a mix of, workstations and servers. They may have some virtualization, maybe even some bare metal, or maybe they're running in the cloud, right? But the point is that they can choose their delivery method and their data center strategy, and we can provide that same superior graphics user experience in the virtual workspace.
And what really fascinates me is this blossoming partnerships between Citrix and NVIDIA, and ultimately how by working together, you're complementing each other's offerings to solve real problems for businesses. So can I ask that you tell me the story behind this partnership and also the difference that the NVIDIA-Citrix relationship is actually bringing to businesses right now?
We've been working with NVIDIA for many years now, going back to 2006, when we joined forces to productize the concept of remote GPU accelerated graphics. And this was a project for a strategic joint customer in the aerospace industry. And since then, we've maintained a very close partnership that has enabled a variety of new use cases for GPU acceleration and application virtualization. Some of our joint customers are typically in the high-tech manufacturing, energy, medical, architecture, engineering, construction industries. And a lot of these industries have many common business requirements that can be met with our solutions. And to name some of the common examples outside of the obvious, 3D application requirements, protection of intellectual property is critical. They also have a need to centralize large data sets and to make these high-performance systems available to geographically dispersed teams. So in this context, NVIDIA provides the necessary hardware to power, the most demanding of applications, and Citrix provides the software for customers to deliver these applications over the network securely and to users anywhere. So we've come a long way since, and today we're starting to see an increase even in cloud adoption for some of these GPU-enabled workloads.
And Neil, Roberto kind of, hit the nail on the head there. Our relationship has actually gone on for so many years now, and even way before NVIDIA Grid technology, right, which is our GPU virtualization stack, was even first released, which was back in 2013. As he said, we kind of go all the way back to 2006, working on some mutual projects and customers. But one of the things that I did want to bring up with you guys, and if you haven't seen the video, it's one of my favorite videos, not only because I was there, but because it really encapsulates what we've been able to do together and to develop between the two companies. And the NVIDIA Grid technology was actually unveiled at Citrix Synergy in 2013. And I remember very clearly, our CEO, Jensen Huang, and, the then Citrix CEO, Mark Templeton, were on stage. And they were talking about the future of workspace. They spoke about SaaSification, right? Which is, stems from software as a service. And it was really, what was really interesting is that they were actually demonstrating on stage how to stream virtual sessions and how to create these mobile workspaces for employees of any kind, right? Any user category, to be able to access from anywhere, right? Even the most demanding applications. And they specifically showed, AutoCAD, and they showed SolidWorks, and they showed, DeltaGen, and some other applications that, we've been working with for many years, being actually accessed remotely and run in the data center on Grid K2 cards back in those times. And so that's one of the, kind of how our partnership started, is kind of solving that use case that, we were really, really good at for many years, and working on, with our workstation offerings and our data center bare metal offerings. But, it wasn't until really 2013 when, we released the NVIDIA Grid technology, and we were really able to go to market together to really tackle some of those highest end use cases in the enterprise IT.
And it doesn't seem that long ago that businesses were forced to migrate from their out-of-support Windows XP operating system to Windows 7. And I think we've all seen the occasional Windows XP machine out there that takes you by surprise now and again. But as a whole, I think, thankfully, the speed of migrations is rapidly changing now. So I've got to ask, what are the market trends driving migrations to Windows 10 at the moment?
So, Neil, we have seen at Citrix a slow adoption of Windows 10 by our enterprise customers. having been released in 2015, here we are 4 years later, and we're just not now starting to see that. But this isn't out of the ordinary, considering everything an enterprise has to go through to roll out a new OS platform across the board. There's app compatibility, validation, system certification, hardware refresh cycles, all of this involved with a move like this. So it is no surprise that that we still see and will continue to see a lot of Windows 7 out there. However, we did begin to see the Windows 10 migrations over the past year, and we expect this to, turn into a big uptake over the rest of the year and throughout 2020. We have customers migrating their existing Windows 7 virtual desktop environments to Windows 10, but in many cases, we're also seeing customers that are now adopting desktop virtualization for the first time, and they are moving to Windows 10 also as part of that effort. So, as with every new OS generation, software is designed to take advantage of the latest hardware and naturally consumes additional resources. And Windows 10 is no different. And our customers are seeing this firsthand. This time, though, it's not just about the typical CPU, memory, and storage increase. There's a lot of other elements as part of the operating system that include rich graphics and media content, which is all part of that modern desktop experience these days. So think internet browsing and even the powerful office productivity apps we now have. So this is where we're starting to see really the benefits of GPUs outside of the typical high-end graphics workloads.
So Roberto brought up a great point about Windows 10 and kind of alluded to why Windows 10 is migrations are so strategically important for both Citrix and NVIDIA. And the truth of the matter is a lot of people actually don't realize until they deploy Windows 10, they actually don't realize how resource intensive it is and how substantially more graphics intensive it is than its predecessors, right? In reality, back in the Windows 7 days, having a GPU in your VDI environment was great, but it wasn't really that much of a necessity. But with Windows 10, if you deploy, an environment only with CPUs without any GPU capability, there are certain modules and there are a lot of applications and also a lot of web content that simply doesn't run smoothly and doesn't provide that superior user experience that many users are actually used to, right? Because when you think about the endpoint devices that, end users nowadays have, powerful laptops that most likely already have a GPU in them, right? Or workstations or iPads, all of these endpoints are very, very powerful, right? And have a lot of resources. So when you go ahead and virtualize those users and you provide that on-demand VDI environment, you absolutely have to make sure that they get at least the same or better user experience. And that same or better philosophy is really what drives our development effort in the Windows 10 and the knowledge worker space, right? Things like WebGL content in websites, things like DirectX and OpenGL API and even Vulkan API. All that content and all those APIs are now so heavily integrated and a lot of applications in the Windows 10 suite rely on those that, especially, when it comes to DirectX and WebGL, that it really becomes almost a showstopper and a deal breaker for many users who, again, are used to their very nice, very expensive workstations when they go to VDI. So their expectations have to be met. That's part of why we're seeing so many customers and such a wide adoption of virtual GPU technology in Windows 10 migrations or Windows 10 projects, I should say.
As a former IT guy, I'm kind of curious, is the legacy app compatibility, is that still the big concern for businesses out there? Because there's many with hundreds of legacy apps out there, and it's a real pain, isn't it, to go through them all one by one?
From our experience, that is definitely one of the reasons a lot of customers benefit from our technologies, and also one of the reasons we see slow adoption of new operating systems. We're always trying to make sure that our customers have the latest and greatest available to them, but we truly understand the way the enterprise needs to support these legacy apps sometimes, right? The hardware moves very fast, the OS follows, and the last ones to move on are generally these applications that are much more complex and costly to develop into the newer platforms.
Yeah, and one of the things that's creating such a push towards Windows 10 is supportability. The fact of the matter is that Windows 7 has been out there for many years now, and the support for it will end. In fact, I believe January of 2020 is when the last extended support, at least as of today, ends for Windows 7 customers. So that's creating a huge push with a lot of customers to really migrate to Windows 10, because the lack of support is a really, really big issue for many enterprises. It kind of leaves a vacuum, right, for a lot of our customers. So that kind of explains also why we're seeing such an uptick in those migrations.
And can you also tell me about how Citrix technology is helping deliver those same user experiences that we're talking about on a Windows virtual desktop over a network as a physical Windows device?
Sure. And to answer that, I'm going to have to maybe provide a bit of history and talk about the change in IT landscape.
Sure.
So this goes back to almost 25 years now, when Citrix first made it possible to deliver Windows applications remotely through the introduction of our independent computing architecture protocol. And I know that's a mouthful, but it's better known as ICA or ICA. And this protocol is still in use today. In fact, it is the foundation for all of the HDX technologies responsible for delivering that user experience. The concept here is really to capture user input on a client device, send it through the wire to a remote server for execution, and return those results back to the user. And we started with the basics, right? This included just your keyboard and mouse, and of course, graphics, which is everything you see on display. Now, over the years, we can see how quickly the typical Windows device evolved to much more than that, right? Think of all the different peripherals like printers and scanners and new audio and video capabilities supporting all sorts of media formats. The explosion of USB that introduced new devices like cameras, microphones, external storage, and the list goes on. And at the same time, the concept of the mobile or remote worker became a common practice in the enterprise. So users were being separated from the IT infrastructure more and more, to the point where today the average employee expects easy access to corporate applications and data from pretty much anywhere in the world. So this also included a variety of new client device types, right? Like laptops and tablets and smartphones, and even running different OSs like Mac, Linux, Android, etc. So let me bring this back to how Citrix helps here. Our focus has been to always, be ahead of the curve, understand our customer business and technical needs, and provide day one support for all of the things that I have mentioned. So looking at the technical side, our HDX technology specifically includes a variety of what we refer to as virtual channels to support whatever a user would expect to do on a physical device, but over the network, securely, and with the same level of performance. So these virtual channels are optimized to deliver things like rich graphics remotely, but also to redirect things like input, which is no longer just keyboard and mouse. Today we have touch, and we have tablet pens and the like, and also all sorts of peripherals and multimedia, and basically everything the user needs from a physical device onto that virtual desktop or application in a seamless fashion. This virtual desktop could be running in a remote data center or a cloud somewhere, and it should make no difference to the user.
And one of the reasons I invited you onto the show, Konstantin, as well, is to help listeners visualize the virtual desktop environment, because I'm incredibly intrigued at the moment by NVIDIA's Windows 10 map program. And for listeners that have not heard about that, can you tell me a little bit more about precisely what NVIDIA's Windows 10 map program is, and also the kind of value it is going to offer businesses?
Absolutely, Neil. The Windows map program is a pre-bundled sales program that we rolled out a few months ago, and basically what it is it's based on a reference architecture with a hardware and a software stack with a server provided by one of our OEM partners, and also includes GPUs as well as licensing for our vGPU software. And with the MAP program or the MAP program, customers are able to take advantage of pretty substantial discounts. We offer subscription licensing with the MAP program. And currently they can buy 3 years of software licensing for vGPU at the price of 2, and 5 years at the price of 3. So it's a pretty substantial discount that they get. And as I said before, it is all baked into that bundle. And as long as they go in and buy a server with one of our OEMs that participate in that program.
What really fascinates me is this partnership between Citrix and NVIDIA, because I think it's incredibly exciting. There's going to be a lot of problems that you're going to be solving out there. But a question that I'm really curious about, that I must ask you here, is what are the biggest lessons that you've learned by working together? And have there been any surprises or happy accidents along the way that you didn't plan for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been such a long time that we've worked together that, this is a question that we can talk about really at length. But one of the things that I would like to mention to the listeners is something that kind of I've observed over the years, and also as a former Citrix employee, I used to work for Citrix almost a decade ago. So I was a Citrite, as you guys like to refer to yourselves. So having been part of the Citrix and NVIDIA relationship and the whole ecosystem for the better part of a decade, one of the trends that I observed, which I kind of call a happy accident, even though it was a long time in the making, is the fact that Citrix was always very focused on sort of bringing that mobile workspace to everyone in the organization, right? Whether you're a knowledge worker, a task worker, a power user, right? The kind of the idea and the goal was always to bring as many users as possible and really unlock them from where they are physically, right? Being able to access the resources on the fly, kind of the anywhere, any device type of philosophy, right? And however, there were always those resource constraints, right? And a lot of times it was legacy networks and legacy storage, and also previously the lack of graphics acceleration, right? That really prevented a lot of the customers. Many customers were sort of very reluctant and avoided going to a cloud, to the cloud, or virtualizing some of their engineering workstations, and those high-end, 3D design type workloads were extremely difficult to virtualize. And when we came out with our NVIDIA, then called NVIDIA Grid technology, with our K1 and K2 cards at the time, that really became a reality, right? So even those types of users could now take advantage of all the goodness that Citrix has to offer with the mobile workspace at remote work. But it also kind of worked the other way around too. So we came along, we solved that high, top of the line use case, right? And then we started expanding into sort of the general purpose market, right? The knowledge workers, the standard business users, the task workers, et cetera, right? That Citrix had been serving for such a long time. And so it almost became a sort of a planetary alignment, right, if you will, between the two of us, because we kind of pushed each other to grow into those markets that we really didn't have much experience before.
And from a Citrix point of view, what have you noticed?
So I have to agree with Konstantin on this one. We've definitely pushed each other to tackle different use cases and come, meet in the middle in front of these customers today.
And looking towards the future, what excites you both about working together and leveraging these emerging technologies and building that future of work that we talked about?
So I'm personally excited about all the opportunities that we have ahead to, expand our current technologies, but also to get into new markets. And for example, here at Citrix, we've been developing a variety of new technologies like our intelligent workspace and things that revolve around analytics cloud services. So, all of these includes elements of big data and machine learning. And who better than NVIDIA, who is, pretty much a leader in this space, to partner with and help deliver on our own vision of the future of work.
Yeah, and just to add to that point, right, we are constantly looking to integrate and bring in new workloads and new markets and new innovative technologies into our virtualization stack, right? And one of those areas that is very interesting is, on the compute side, is the emergence of artificial intelligence type workloads, machine learning, deep learning, data science, as well as HPC type applications that, again, traditionally have been managed sort of as separate entities, right, with very specific set of technical and resource requirements, right? Very sort of bare metal type deployments, right? And now with the sort of the advent of some of the new features that we have in our vGPU stack, such as our vCompute server, it's now possible to actually bring in those type of workloads into the enterprise virtualized data center environment, where IT admins and customers of all sizes can really take advantage of their existing hypervisor tools, their existing data center automation and orchestration capabilities, right? That have been on the market for so long. If you think about some of the features of Citrix Zen servers, such as live migration, right? Management and monitoring, etc. All these benefits of the Citrix hypervisor and the NVIDIA virtual GPU solution can now be extended to those higher performance compute type workloads. And as we know, those applications and those algorithms and those workloads are really, really booming right now. It's really creating the next industrial revolution. And, one of the things that I'm looking forward to, and I know, both me and Roberto are, is kind of bringing that ecosystem and that user base into the equation and into our, what we call our mobile workspace or virtualized workspace. And I think it's going to be great. That's one of the things that I'm really excited about.
Well, a huge thank you to you both for taking time out of your busy days to come and explain all this to me and talk about the partnerships. There's so much value in there, especially for businesses and business leaders listening. And I am conscious that there's going to be a few, because we've covered so much ground, there's going to be people left with a few more questions that they're going to need to talk with you about, or just curious and want to find out more information. So can I ask that you remind them of where they can find out more about Citrix, Citrix Ready, NVIDIA, and the value of GPU for Windows 10 as well?
So for Citrix, our website, citrix.com, would be the one-stop shop for all sorts of information. You can click on our partners link on the top right corner on the website and find out more about the Citrix Ready program, as well as our partnership with NVIDIA.
Yeah, and for us, of course, some of the resources that we talked about today will be available on the blog post that will have, the link to the recording, right? When that comes out, you guys are going to see the links as well to our, Windows 10 MAP FAQ, some of our solution overviews, as well as some sales enablement assets for some of our NPM partners. So definitely be on the lookout for that blog post. And if you have any questions, of course, you can contact any of us, or you can contact your local, NVIDIA account rep if you, have an opportunity, or if you would like to, pursue, business with NVIDIA. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, Neil, having me. We should do this again. It's just a ton of fun. And, hopefully next time we'll have an opportunity to talk about some of these new things that we just alluded to today.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I'm going to do, there'll be a blog post accompanying this podcast episode over my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. And I'll also, not only will there be links to everything that we've talked about, but I'll also embed that video that you talked about, Constantine, because I think that will help listeners visualize everything today. And one of the things I've loved about this conversation is we've busted a few myths about what Citrix and NVIDIA do. But at the end of every episode, I always say here that technology works best when it brings people together. But what I love about what you're doing is how by partnering together, you can use technology and emerging technologies to solve more real world problems for businesses. I think that's so valuable. And I just wish so many other companies would do more with that. So thanks so much for sharing that story with me and coming on the show today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having us as well, Neil.
Thank you, Neil.
I love how both Citrix and NVIDIA are huge respected names in the tech industry and hugely successful in their own right. But the real exciting aspect for me is how they're both thinking beyond their own organisations and looking towards leveraging their partnerships. Because together they can improve experiences that their customers are demanding with their rising expectations. And as I always say, technology always works best when it brings people together. And in this case, it's businesses working together to help their customers. So as we continue to bust a few myths and solve real problems with some pretty big names on this podcast, I would love to hear from everybody listening if there are any problems that you would like us to tackle right here on this podcast series. If there are, please let me know. And if you want to contact me directly, I'm available at techblogwriter@outlook.com. You can catch me on Twitter at Neil C. Hughes. And you can also find out more about me and this series over on my website, which is techblogwriter.co.uk. And for anyone looking for more information on NVIDIA and its technologies, remember you can find them on the Citrix Ready marketplace at citrixready.citrix.com too. But to keep things nice and simple, you'll find all the links that we've mentioned in today's episode, which again you can find over on my website techblogwriter.co.uk, and if you look at the top you'll come across the Citrix Ready podcast. So last month we spoke with Citrix and ControlUp and learned how they were working together, and today we spoke with Citrix and NVIDIA. But let me know if there are any other partners you'd like me to invite on. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you again next time, where we will share another example of how technology works best when it brings people together.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.